Well, I'm coming to you on March 8th, International Women's Day, on the Ukraine crisis, in what has become my nightly video. Well, I want to first say that U.S. commentators are historically illiterate. I don't usually watch the news cable services. They are ridiculous. But I did happen to see The Five, which is a Fox Talking Heads program, not news, but Talking Heads. And one of the members of his panel, I think the only one that I knew was Geraldo Rivera, and I guess Judge Ginny Pirro. I don't really know her, but there was another gentleman, a gentleman by the name of Jesse, who couldn't understand how the Poles were willing to give the Ukrainians their fleet of MiG 29s. This is obviously egregious lack of historical knowledge. The Poles have a historical conflict, have had historical conflicts with the Russians and the Soviets. The latest one, of course, being 1970, when Brezhnev, invoking the Brezhnev doctrine, that is, if once you become part of the Soviet bloc, you can never leave it. Crushed an attempt by Poland to free itself, and of course the later 1980s breakthrough by Pope John Paul II and the Solidarity movement, which actually succeeded in breaking away from the Soviet Union. But it is these conflicts are only compounded by the historical animosity and historical irredentism of the Poles for the Russians. I mentioned some of that in earlier videos, but one that should be factored into this analysis is, of course, the 1939 invasion of Poland, not only by Hitler from the west, but by Stalin from the east. Stalin wanted to also dismember Poland, partially because the Poles resisted the Bolshevik Revolution and actually defeated the Bolsheviks under Marshal Joseph Pilsudski at the gates of Warsaw in the 1920s. Stalin got his revenge by moving in with Hitler to dismember Poland. He went so far as to make an alliance. A Marxist, Leninist, went so far to do this that he made an alliance with the Nazi dictator of Germany. Inconceivable, but it's part of the history between Poland and Russia. I would not put it past the Poles to fly those planes themselves. They're that anxious to stop Putin. Now, giving those planes from a German air base, I think, has been vetoed by the Pentagon, but I think the Poles will find a way to get those planes to the Ukrainians. It is an embarrassment, I think, on the part of the United States, and it tarnishes our sense of responsibility that we are not willing to use the German base to broker this exchange of vital military hardware. I mean, it's not going to provoke Putin. Putin's already provoked. We're giving thousands of Stinger missiles, javelins, I hear air defense systems to the Ukrainians, who have inflicted more than significant damage on the Russian forces coming into their country, where Russia's had to kind of turn from the quick strike widespread invasion to an attempt to break through from the Donbass and the Donetsk separatist republics. This is what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to encircle the 60% of the Ukrainian forces that were stationed there, at least at the beginning of the war. I don't think they will succeed. Every indicator, and again, I get this from intelligence services. I said Jane's Intelligence Service, which is open source. I also get it from the Ministry of Defense from the UK and other sources that I've gained over time. And I use, I basically worked for the U.S. government doing much of this. So I use that to kind of interpret what comes out of there. And I don't think that the Soviets will manage to defeat the Ukrainians. In fact, the British Ministry of Defense said today that they believe that the Soviet army will kind of implode in the Ukraine. And even if they were to defeat the Ukrainian military, there would be a prolonged insurgency that Putin would not be able to put down without losing political power in Russia. I tend to concur with that assessment. So I like to talk a little bit about the Chinese angle. And I do believe that President Xi Jinping is not going to attack Taiwan. In fact, he is aiming for an unprecedented third term, which, Chinese presidents, their terms are usually 5 years. Xi Jinping wants a unlimited, indefinite period, and which would be unprecedented in the annals of the Communist Party of China. But right now at the National People's Congress, he is kind of highlighting his economic achievements. And those achievements are being threatened by the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. In fact, the higher oil and gas go, the more it will impact and become an obstacle for Chinese economic development. In addition to that, their massive national project, the Belt and Road project running through Asia into Eastern Europe, is significantly threatened by Putin's military attack on the Ukraine, where it's destroying much of that infrastructure. So I do believe that Xi Jinping would like this war to end. I think it also discourages him and dissuades him from attacking Taiwan. And again, I think that there are also historical factors, and I do believe that there are iron laws of history. That is, history determines much of the actions of national and international players. And in China, military power or the soldier has never been seen as particularly important. In fact, Confucius, Master Kung Fu Tzu, who is the primary shaper of Chinese consciousness, had a social hierarchy. At the top of the social hierarchy, you had the scholars, scholar gentlemen, and then they were followed by peasants, artisans, merchants, and soldiers at the very bottom. The whole idea that you would have to use military force was something that, foster military power was something that Confucius rejected. And that has been part and parcel of Chinese culture for a very, very long time. I don't think that will change. So in that sense, China has never been a militaristic state that tries to project its military power much further than its borders. the Korean War being something of an exception, but if you look at it, it really wasn't. So China does not have a kind of history of projecting military power, and certainly doesn't have a history of projecting that military power successfully. So I do think that given the worldwide opprobrium that has been marshaled against Russia, and the stiff military response of the Ukrainians, China, if it thought about attacking Taiwan and crossing that 80-mile sea, I think would think it again, would think it through and may find it less likely an option. Again, I think that given Chinese investments in Taiwan, and given its history of kind of downplaying the military, even though you hear some, that China's spending now on its military. I think, given all those factors, I think China would not seek to invade Taiwan. Certainly not anytime soon. Certainly not before November, December of this year, because President Xijiping would be getting that term given sometime in October, I believe. Again, if you like my talk, please subscribe to this channel, and I leave you now.